Hey, that's okay, Tiffany. I'll have it up shortly. It was pretty short of a chapter, actually. Morning, Abby. How's everyone doing? Playing with Barbie Girl, such a nice slime. Oh, thank you. I love that slime. Love, love, love that slime. Definitely a win in my book. What's everyone drinking this morning? I don't know why it's not working. It's not working with baking powder. Then you guys must have different baking powder where you are, Snaky. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm not familiar with the ingredients in your country, which is why I try to be really careful when I give advice across countries. Because, hey, morning, Liz. Because I haven't used the ingredients in your country, so that's why you'll always hear me say, this is my best guess, but I cannot promise it will work. Then I'm not using PVA glue, or you're not using PVA glue. Yeah, that's another option as well. Yeah, good thought. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you. Baking powder has, in general has cream, I know. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Hi, Nikki. Someone needs coffee. I wanted to sleep a little bit more because I was up making slime until 1 in the morning, but Zoe and Gustav and Catherine are coming over at 8, so we got to get this done because they are having some construction done on their home, so they're going to come hide out here, and then I am going to take Zoe to dance class, and then after I take Zoe to dance class, hey Sonia, I'm going to take stuff to the post office, and then I'm going to go to Target and get wine for tonight for Shira and I for wine and slime, and then make more slime. Yeah, that's what's up. Sonia, are you excited to see Grandma soon? Thank you, Nicole. I appreciate that. I got the green light to buy your Patreon next month. I'm excited. That's so exciting, Nikki. Thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate that. Do you know what you're going to get? You guys get to see Grandma next week, and I get to see Grandma next month. Very exciting all around. That's a great level. Hopefully some spots will open up. That level is full right now. Last night, Secret Boyfriend was like, why don't you just make more spots? I was like, because I have to have the time to make more spots. It's not like the slime's not just going to appear, you know. It's like, I was like, listen, buddy, who's going to make the slime? By the way, I was asking what happens if you overactivate any slime, but mainly Cloud. If you overactivate Cloud, just add some lotion to it or a little bit of water. That's not true for every slime, but most white glue slimes, lotion will fix. Don't do water on other white glue slimes, but definitely with Cloud. Like that fixing video you saw me do, a little bit of water like that. Ugh. Yeah. Or maybe somebody from the Roll for Slime level will bump up to the Everything is Awesome level and a Roll for Slime one will open, because I know a lot of people in the custom level, the $30 level, want in to the 67 level, but it's also sold out. So maybe there'll be some shifts. I don't know. No problem, Nicole. No problem. Happy to help. Happy to help. I am not sure where some of the book club folk are, so I'm going to send them a little note to see if they want to come. If not, we'll read anyway. But once I get a job, I'll get the top tier. Oh, Nikki, don't even stress. The $30 here is great, to be honest. I just wish I could make more spots. I just don't have the hours in the day to make more spots, you know? But I told everybody, this is what I told everyone before. I said, if I get to the end of July was a short month for Patreon because we didn't start it at the beginning of the month. But if I get to the end of August and I've been able to accomplish everything before the last week with the extra time, then I will add more spots to the $30 level. I just currently don't have the hours in the day. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, you know? I'm tempted to do so others can get the roll for slime tier. Abby, I mean, only if you want it. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't want the extra stuff, don't spend the money for no reason. The people who are in the higher tier, I believe one of the benefits that they wanted was that they get free shipping on all their slime orders. So that kind of makes it balance out too. Because no matter how many times you order slime per month, you get free shipping on everything. So that's one of the benefits of the higher level and stuff like that. Hey, Shira. I get it. It's more for me. I want to be able to fully swear. Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, the other stuff in there is cool. Like getting to do all of the lives and everything like that is a lot of fun. I was actually looking at tiers earlier and thinking of moving up to all in so that you can get free shipping. Is that why, Shelly? That's one of the reasons that the people who are in there, oh wait, you're in the level that has free shipping already. I feel like, oh, just, Shelly, save your money, girl. Do it only if you want. Guys, I would never tell anyone to buy into a level unless they need they want the benefits of that. Like the Patreons that I support, Shira's being one of them, the stuff that I get is because I want it. You know what I mean? Like it's a treat for myself. Or, girl, and you are going on a trip today. You need to be careful. You're going to another country. Oh, speaking of going to another country, Shelly, do you have a person, place, or thing with all of your backup documents, like in their email? Do you have like anyone who you've sent, like when I went to Italy, I sent my mom and my best friend like a document. It's a treat for myself. I don't. Yeah, no, actually, same, Nikki. I'm the same. I have extra copies with me. My dad has a pic of my passport. Okay, send your dad a picture of your passport, a picture of your license, and what else did I send in mine? Well, I also said at the time I had to send like my COVID vaccination cards and things like that. You probably won't need that anymore, but just in case. You never know. Be safe. I sent a PDF to my mom and kept it in her email with like everything in it. Yeah. All right. Let's get reading. In case anyone doesn't know, we are reading Land of Stories book 3 and we are on chapter 16. I hope we're going to get our new book soon from Lily because we are running low on, oh, I'm just looking out, you know what I mean? You gotta be careful. Hopefully Lily's gonna post and send our book soon because we only have, how many pages left? We're at 273 and the book goes to the book goes to 469. That's not really that much. We go through it. Copy number 2 is happening now. Is it a good one? Anyway, I'm hoping Lily does our roll for a reading book and mails it soon. Oh wait, I wasn't going to use that for this. That's for something else. Oh, well maybe. Let's see what the book is. I did, you guys, just so you know, I did get a book in the mail. I was thinking of making our next book for here. It's called Everything Staged, and it's the story of the impact that Rent had on the community Not yet, but I'm going to. I just haven't had time to finish it yet, Shelley. But, you know, I was thinking of reading that because I think it would be really interesting. I'm going to read it regardless. I just bought it for myself to read anyway. But I was like, maybe that's our like break from fiction for a little while and we read a little bit of nonfiction for a minute. It just came in the mail yesterday. So maybe we'll read that next. Or maybe, I'm wondering if it's appropriate for TikTok. And if not, I'll read it on the other platform just because it is about rent and rent has some topics in it. But I guess I probably could tweak what I say and like code it for TikTok, probably like I did with one of the other ones where I was like, you know, blah, blah, blah. I might be able to do that. Adult subjects, exactly. Rent does touch on adult subjects, but it is a great story, and I'm very interested to see what this book has to say. It's not a story about rent, it's a story about like the impact of rent, which I find fascinating, and I love that kind of stuff. That's definitely a lot of my personal studies that I did in school, was like the impact of XYZ in theater on either the community or the world at large. Hey, Becca. So I don't know, that might be what we do next. Would you ever read a play, a book? Yeah. I mean, I love reading plays and I think that'd be super fun. It would just have to be the right one. You know what I mean? Like if you guys would let me read Shakespeare to you, I just got chills thinking about how lovely it would feel to read Shakespeare on this thing. Like, do you guys want to read Shakespeare next? So good. I'll read you Twelfth Night. Delights. I would love to listen to you read Shakespeare. I mean, Twelfth Night's my favorite, and then Romeo and Juliet, which I believe is wildly misunderstood and wholly underrated. But there are many others that we could do as well. Maybe I'll do like a sample chapter later today and post it and everyone can decide between the two. Maybe I'll post one chapter from each. You'd make Midsummer Night Dream so fun with your voices. Yeah, I am not the biggest fan of Midsummer Night Dream. I'd listen to you read anything. Oh, thank you. I'd like to hear you read Shakespeare, but I can't promise focus. I mean, you know, that's fair, Becca. Becca supports me whether she likes it or not. Are you still in Italy? No, I am in California. I had some weird family things that brought me back to California. The world has taken a wild turn since then. Of course, I go back to work on Friday and I'll be teaching during book club time. Yeah, but it'll be recorded, Liz, and the book club lives for the other platform are not in the morning, so that'll be different. So yeah, anyway, let's get reading and we can decide later today on the next book. Yeah. All right. This is chapter 16, The Masked Man of Pinocchio Prison. Pinocchio Prison had just been restored following the enchantress's vicious attack when it was faced with yet another threat. Like a swift bolt of lightning, the Grande Armée charged towards the fortress in the early hours of the morning and unleashed the full power of its 19th century artilleries. The heavily spiked front doors of the prison were blasted into smithereens by the army's cannons. Only 200 enchanted wooden soldiers guarded the prisoners inside, and they were no match for the thousands of Frenchmen invading the prison. The Grande Armée forced its way inside, and the wooden soldiers were blown into pieces by volleys of rifle fire. After the wooden soldiers were completely obliterated and the smoke began to clear, General Marquis stepped inside the prison and had a look at his newest conquest. Pinocchio Prison was 30 stories high and opened on the inside like a cylinder. From the center of the ground, the general could see the floor after floor of various creatures locked in their cells above him. The prisoners were a rowdy bunch, consisting of ogres, witches, trolls, goblins, elves, animals, men, and women alike. Some welcomed the French soldiers who had destroyed the wooden guards by banging their chains against the bars of their cells. Others cowered in fear, afraid that they would be targeted next. Nothing was known about these intruders, and they spoke and dressed differently from anyone the prisoners had ever seen. By judging their weapons, the prisoners could only assume these men were soldiers of very dark magic. The remains of the wooden soldiers were piled in the center of the prison. Many pieces, such as legs and hands, still twitched. The general poured lamp oil over the pile of fallen and lit it on a fallen? That must mean like firewood or like broken wood. I don't know. And lit it on fire so the prisoners above could watch the guards who held them captive burn. General Marquis circled the flames and a hush fell over the prison. Good morning, the general said to the prisoners above. I am General Marquis of the Grande Armée of the French Empire. I am certain many of you have never heard of the Empire and its army before. So I'd like... Oh, why did I get Russian all of a sudden? I'd like to change that now. Where we come from, we are known as one of the greatest armies and military force of history. We have dominated every territory in our path and have defeated every nation that stood in our way. And now we have come to your world to claim it as our own. The prisoners grew uncomfortable in his presence. The general didn't need to say anything further to convince them that he was a cunning and powerful man. They could sense it. Where we are from, we have a phrase, the general continued. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, we say. Today I'd like to give each of you the chance to make friends with the Grande Armée. We offer you a chance to join our conquest and be cleared of your crimes. Help us fight against the people who imprisoned you. Help us seize this world in the name of France and become part of the French Empire. The majority of the prisoners cheered at what he was offering. Or you can stay here and rot in the prison as intended, the general said. The choice is yours. The prison vibrated as the prisoners roared with delight. Anything was better than spending another day in the prison, even joining the army. Finally, they could experience the freedom and revenge that they had only dreamt about. Colonel Baton, along with Captain Delon and Lieutenant Rambert, recruited the criminals one cell at a time. The inmates were given the option of pledging their allegiance to the French Empire or remaining locked in the cell. Oh, I need a lot of coffee today too, Rosie. I need a lot of coffee. And to the general, did you get your slime yet? It should have been there already because you're like 2 feet away from me. And to the general's pleasure, almost all the prisoners waited with bated breath to pledge their allegiance and be freed from their cells. One prisoner gave the commander an answer they weren't expecting. His cell was at the very top of the prison, and he supplied them with a message for the general that was too enticing to ignore. General Marquis, Colonel Baton said, there's a prisoner who wishes to speak with you, sir. The general was irritated that Baton would even bring him such a request. And what makes this man worthy of my time? He wishes to help you, Baton said. He says without his help, you cannot conquer the fertile world. Hearing the prisoner's message infuriated the general. Who would dare be so bold as to give General Marquis an ultimatum? But the general was so determined in his quest for domination that he allowed his curiosity to outweigh his ego. He decided to speak with the prisoner and see if he had anything worthwhile to contribute. Ah, that's amazing. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I hope she loves it. Baton led the general to the very top of the prison and showed him to the cell of the daring man. A large plaque displayed on the wall beside his cell read, "The masked man sentenced to life in prison in Pinocchio prison for attempted robbery of the fairy godmother." The general peered into the cell to see the prisoner for himself. The masked man was tall, but very frail. He wore a tattered suit and his tie was torn in half. A gray sack over his head concealed his face and holes were cut around the eyes and mouth. "You're the masked man, I take it," the general said. "Hello, General," he said. "I thoroughly enjoyed your speech down there. Boy, you sure know how to make an entrance. Did they teach you that in military training?" The general raised a glare at this ridiculous man. "I do not have time for games," he said. "Make sure this man stays in his cell." The general stormed off, but the masked man desperately reached for him through the bars and begged him to stay. "No, wait, General," he pleaded. "I apologize. I didn't mean to offend you. I'm only trying to help. I have information that will lead you to certain victory." On this, the general turned on his heels and faced the prisoner. "And how can a man like you possibly help a man like me?" "Because you're not from this world." "And I am," the masked man said. "I know my way around and how it operates. You are a very impressive army, but that won't be enough to take over. You're going to need something bigger, much more powerful if you're going to stand up to the fairies." and I know where you can get it. The general took a step closer to the man. His interest sparked, although his face didn't show it. You have 2 minutes of my time. Explain yourself, he said. The masked man rubbed his hands together and began. He was a very odd and animated man and used a lot of hand gestures as he spoke, most of which didn't go along with what he said. It was like his hands and mouth were describing 2 different things. The first thing you should know about this world is the history, he said. The past is divided into 3 ages, the Dragon Age, the Age of Magic, and the Golden Age, which we're living in now. Hundreds of years ago, during the Dragon Age, this world was a mess. It was filled with tyrant kings, evil sorcerers, and obviously dragons. Lots and lots of dragons. They were nearly unstoppable and reproduced like rabbits. What value does this history lesson have to me? The general asked. He was starting to feel like his time was being wasted, and it angered him. I'm getting there, General, the masked man assured him. Like I was saying, there were dragons everywhere, destroying everything. And then the fairies got together and they put a stop to that. And that's how they came to power and the world entered the Age of Magic. They formed the Happily Ever After Assembly, and there was peace on Earth, yada, yada, yada. Now the fairy godmother, head of the assembly, and her fairies have been in charge since the dragons went extinct, and no one has been able to overthrow them because... He was hoping the general would play along and finish his sentence, but he didn't break his stoic expression. Dragons, the masked man said with a majestical hand gesture. No one has been able to overthrow the fairies because you need a dragon, he said. And I know where to get one. General Marquis had expected his left eye to start twitching from the moment the masked man started speaking, but it didn't. There must have been some truth to what he was saying. So where do we get this dragon? The general asked. The masked man dropped his hands. An equally serious expression grew on his own face. Let me out of this cell first and I'll show you. General Marquis was impressed by the masked man's quick and calculated scheme, but he figured there was much more to this man than met the eye. He wanted to know more about him before he unlocked the door of his cell. How long have you been in this prison? He asked. Yeah, a decade, the masked man said. And where were you sentenced to life for attempted burglary? The general pressed. Surely even in this world, that's an awfully harsh punishment for such a small crime. The masked man lowered his head shamefully, not for committing the crime, but for failing to accomplish it. It was what I was trying to steal that the sentence cemented the sentence, he said, and then he looked into the general's eyes. You and I are very similar men. We know what an opportunity is when we see one. Otherwise, neither of us would be standing here now. There was an eagerness in the masked man's pale blue eyes that the general found alluring. Perhaps this man could be of service after all. One last question, the general said. Why do you wear a bag over your head? The masked man smiled coyly. Same reason you wear your uniform, he said, to cover something I don't want the rest of the world to see. Normally a statement like this would outrage the general, but this time it made him smile. The masked man was a strange man, but he was one of the few the general could identify with. Colonel Baton, General Marquis ordered, remove this man from his cell. As soon as we leave the prison, we will organize a traveling party and he will guide us to a dragon. Interesting. Short chapter. What time is it? 7:27. Let me see how long the next chapter is. Next chapter looks kind of short too. I think we can do it. Yeah, these are short chapters. So weird. Huh. All right, well, let's keep going. Chapter 17, The Only Witness. Alex and Connor sat by their grandma's bedside all night. Neither of them could think about sleep at a time like this. They were afraid if they left their grandmother, it would discourage her from waking up. They hoped that if she felt their presence for long enough, it might activate that last bit of magic inside of her. An emergency fairy council meeting was called earlier the next morning to discuss the matters at stake. Since the fairy godmother was absent, Alex asked Connor to accompany her. The twins always thought best when they were together, and they hoped that they could help the Fairy Council assess the current situation. Alex took a seat in her chair, and Connor leaned against its arm. Although their grandmother's seat was empty, Connor wouldn't sit in it. He didn't want to feel like it was available. The meeting had already started, and they could tell the conversation was heated when they walked in. All the fairies were standing at their respective podiums, staring daggers at Mother Goose. "Let me get this straight," Emeralda said. "An army from the other world has been trapped in the portal for 200 years, and now they plan on taking over our world?" "Well, that's in the golden eggshell," Mother Goose said, and she shifted in her seat as the others glared at her. "And why didn't you bring this to our attention?" Tangerina said, obviously infuriated. Her bees flew aggressively around her beehive. They would have attacked Mother Goose had she given the word. "I didn't want to worry the fairy godmother," Mother Goose said. "I thought I could take care of the situation myself, and I was too embarrassed to involve anyone else. The Brothers Grimm and I trapped him inside the portal, and then luckily, by the time the 200 years were up, the portal had been permanently closed by the fairy godmother. I thought that I was in the clear for the good, until she became ill." "So you didn't tell anyone about this because you didn't want anyone to worry or think less of you?" Skylene asked. "That seems like jumping into a lake to avoid the rain, if you ask me." Mother Goose looked at the twins, especially Connor, and then told the council something she had never told anyone before. "A very long time ago, before any of you were on this council, before the fairy godmother and I lost the color in our hair and gained the wrinkles on our face, we were both much thinner. Before Esmea and Alex, I was the fairy godmother's first apprentice," she confessed. All the fairies looked at one another floored. Of all the things they involuntarily knew about her, Alex and Connor were impressed that she had managed to keep this a secret. "It only took me a few months to realize I wasn't cut out for the job," Mother Goose explained. "Sure, I was capable, but I just wasn't willing. I was too much of a free spirit to take on that kind of responsibility. So I passed on the highest honor a fairy could have and became the laughingstock of the kingdom. The fairy godmother said she understood, but I knew that she was disappointed, and it killed me. I promised myself I would never let her down again, so in 1800s, when I was careless enough to get caught by those greedy French fries, I handled the situation in the best way I could, so I'd never have to see the disappointment in those eyes again." None of the fairies knew what to say, so they just shook their heads. Connor felt sorry for Mother Goose. After growing up with a sister as precocious as Alex, he knew very well what it was like to constantly disappoint people, and now he understood why Mother Goose hadn't been honest with him about the portal. "Oh, come on," Connor said to the fairies. "Give Mother Goose a break. You're all standing there shaking your heads as if you could have handled the situation any better. Well, no offense, but at least she came up with a solution. I can't remember the last time I saw any of you solve anything. Every time there's a crisis, it's usually Alex and me who figure out what to do." "How are we not supposed to take offense to that?" Xanthos asked the others. "My point is, glass people shouldn't throw stones," Connor said. The phrase is, "people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones," Alex corrected him. "Oh, yeah," he said. "Well, you get my point." Mother Goose smiled at Connor and mouth. "Thank you, G-Dog." Emeralda massaged her forehead as she thought about what to do next. "There's no use in blaming anyone for what's happened. We need to move forward and find a way to fix it," Emeralda said. "Alex, what do you think we should do?" She couldn't believe Emeralda was asking her. "Me?" she asked. "Yes, of course you," Emeralda said. "Unless your grandmother miraculously recovers, you'll be acting as fairy godmother." This was a heavy thing for both the twins to digest. When people referred to Alex as the next fairy godmother, she always assumed they meant someday in the distant future, not now. Alex bit her thumb and looked at the floor while she thought it over. "Well, we need to see this army first so we know for sure what we're up against," she said. "The more we know about them, the easier it will be to find a solution." "Yeah, last thing I heard them talk about was an attack on Pinocchio prison," Connor said. "Why would they be attacking a prison?" Rosette asked. "Well, the general said they were recruiting," Connor said. Suddenly the room grew very tense. All the fairies eyed one another and frantically whispered amongst themselves. I told you, General Marquis is a smart man," Mother Goose said. "Wait, am I missing something?" Connor asked. "What use can he get from recruiting a bunch of criminals?" "Yeah, some pretty powerful characters in that prison," Mother Goose said.
Trust me, I know most of them, and the prisoners in Pinocchio prison are only the ones who have been caught. The dwarf forest and the backwoods of every kingdom are crawling with criminals, and when they see that their friends have joined an army fighting against us, they'll all want to join too. If the general succeeds in recruiting them, we won't just be fighting an old army, we could be fighting a war.
Connor gulped. He was sorry he even asked. Coral was having difficulty processing the information too. She politely raised her hand and asked a question. I freaking love the Mother Goose voice so much. I'm so glad she hasn't passed away. Me too. Me too, Becca. I love her. She's one of the most fun to do. I hope a voice like this shows up in every book we read for the rest of forever. So are you saying it's possible that the happily ever after assembly may be up against everyone else? Mother Goose said. Yeah, all the creatures in the other kingdoms have been waiting for the opportunity to overthrow the fairies and the humans. This could be the chance. Coral looked like she was about to cry. She cradled Fisher even tighter in her arms at the thought of what tomorrow might bring. The witches, the ogres, the trolls, the goblins, the elves, they've wanted us gone since the Dragon Age, Violetta added. They've just lacked the organizational skills to challenge us. Yeah, and those skills are ones that the general can provide, Mother Goose said. While Connor and the fairies started to panic, Alex was adamant about her original plan. The more information they had, the more options they would have. She raised her wand and brought a bright bolt of light out of it, silencing the room of frightened fairies. We're worrying about a lot of ifs, Alex said. We don't know if the prisoners have joined the general yet. Those criminals are in prison because they couldn't follow the rules of a society. What makes us think they'll follow the general's commands? She made a very good point. There was no use in worrying unless they had evidence to worry about. My brother and I will go to the prison and see if they were successful in recruiting prisoners, Alex said. We'll need a way to get there without being seen, and a flying ship or a unicorn isn't going to go unnoticed by men from our world. You could take Lester, Mother Goose said. That's why I rode him around the other world. If anyone sees him flying in the sky, they just assume he's a normal bird. Great, Alex said. We'll leave as soon as possible and get a better idea of what we're up against. None of the fairies argued. For the first time, Alex's word was final, and it was respected. With no time to lose, Alex and Connor immediately followed Mother Goose up to the grand balcony. She whistled for Lester, and he swooped down in front of the towers above. She pulled his reins down and whispered their plan into his ear. Froggy and Red were also on the balcony, showing the view of the gardens to Bree and Emmerich. Bree walked over to Connor as soon as she saw him. Hey, Bree, Connor said. How'd you sleep? Oh, you know, she said, as well as anyone could their first night in a new dimension, I suppose. Connor smiled, and he remembered the restless feelings all too well. As tired as she was, Bree still had an excited light in her eyes as she was looking around the palace. I'm so sorry you guys are stuck here. We're going to get you home as soon as possible, Connor said. It's my own fault for wanting an adventure, Bree said. I made you take me, remember? This made Connor feel a little better. He looked over at Emmerich as Froggy pointed out the different parts of the gardens below. He looked like he was having the time of his life. He reminded Connor of himself during his and Alex's first trip to the Land of Stories. He would have given anything to face those problems again. Hey, Kendra. I've just talked Les to throw it, Mother Goose said. He knows flying high enough so no one will see him will be good. Squawk! Lester nodded. So then let's get going, Alex said. They climbed aboard the giant goose and took off into the sky, heading in the direction of the prison. They flew over the gardens of the fairy kingdom and the sparkling waters of Mermaid Bay. They saw Pinocchio prison at the center of the peninsula at the southern tip of the eastern kingdom ahead of them. There it is, Alex pointed out. Lester, circle the prison until we can see something. Lester nodded and looped the sky above the prison. There was a destruction everywhere, and Alex and Connor could see the entrance had been blown to bits all the way from the sky. However, there was no trace of prisoners or soldiers anywhere. I think it's safe to get a little closer, Connor said. Lester gradually descended, circling the prison as cautiously as possible. The closer they got, the more certain they were that no one was around. They looked for somewhere to land, but the prison was covered in enormous spikes to prevent anyone from doing that. Alex waved her wand at the prison's roof, and the spikes turned to tall blades of grass for Lester to land on. Okay, let's see if anyone's left inside, Alex said, and she pointed her wand at the roof again, and a small hatch appeared. They opened the hatch and dropped inside, landing on the prison's highest floor. The air inside was very smoky. All the cells of the top floor were wide and open and empty.
They looked down the center of the prison and saw that all 29 floors below them were exactly the same. I don't think anyone's here, Connor said. It's like they had a fire drill and never came back. The twins jumped and suddenly they heard a voice that wasn't either of their own. Sitting in a cell on the top floor by herself was a woman. Hi, Crystal. Psst, she said. Over here. Alex and Connor approached the woman with caution. Whoever she was still in a prison and couldn't be trusted. The woman was only a few years older than Red and wasn't aging nearly as gracefully. Her hair was thin and messy, and she had bags under her enormous eyes. She wore a plain black dress and no shoes. Down here, the woman called up to them from where she was sitting on the floor. Her voice sounded alarmed, but she seemed perfectly comfortable. You've got to warn someone. An army raided the prison earlier today and took the prisoners with them. They're trying to take over the world. Alex and Connor leaned down to speak with her. She stuck her head through the bars as far as it would go. We know about the army and we're trying to stop them, Alex said. We've come here to find out more. Were the prisoners taken captive or did they join them? Connor asked. Oh, they joined them, the woman said. The soldiers opened every cell and gave each prisoner the option of staying or joining their army, and as you can see, it was almost a unanimous decision. Why didn't you leave with them? Alex asked. The woman looked at them like they were insane. I'm not going out there, she said and shook her head. There's nothing for me out there. I mean, perhaps at one point there was, but not anymore. I'll belong right here in my cell. You've been in here for a long time, haven't you? Connor asked. Alex thought there was something curious about her, and she saw the plaque on the wall next to the woman's cell, and Alex stood to read it. The Lady Gretel, sentenced to life in Pinocchio prison for the murder of Sir Hansel. Alex gestured for Connor to look at the plaque too. Connor, it's Gretel from Hansel and Gretel, she whispered to him. She killed her brother. What? He whispered back. It's all right. You don't have to whisper, Gretel said. I know what the plaque says. I know who I am, and I know what I did. Alex suddenly had so many questions. Why did you kill your brother? Gretel dreamily stared off into the distance. Because it was the only way that I could be free. Free from what? Alex asked. From Hansel and Gretel, Gretel said. The story? Connor asked. No, the label, Gretel said. Their inquiring looks begged her to explain more. After my brother and I survived the gingerbread house, all I wanted was to have a normal life. But that's not what Hansel wanted. He wanted us to be heroes. He told everyone we knew about what happened to us in the woods, and then those people told people, and soon word spread and we became household names around the kingdoms. We were treated like royalty. Parades were thrown for us. We were honored with medals everywhere we went, and they eventually named a holiday after us. That sounds pretty nice, Connor said. Gretel's eyes shot up at him. No, it was terrible, she said. Because no one cared about me. They just cared about Hansel and Gretel. I just wanted to be Gretel, just Gretel. And no matter what I did, no one would let me just be Gretel. It was like my brother had become an invisible ball and chain that I was forced to carry around for the rest of my life. But he was your brother, Alex said. Didn't you love him? Gretel grunted and stuck out her tongue like she had tasted something foul. Ugh, no. I couldn't stand him, she said. Hansel may have seemed like a nice young man, but all he cared about was himself and the attention that he got. He used to drag me around with him so that I could get more admiration. Hansel took all the credit for what happened to us in the gingerbread house, even though I was the one who tricked the witch and pushed her into the fireplace. He couldn't even be alive without me. Had I known what I know now, I would have let the witch eat him. So you killed him instead? Gretel nodded. It was an accident. One day we were walking through the trees and he started mentioning all the places he had planned for us to go and all the people we would meet and all the awards we were going to receive in the upcoming days. Well, I got so mad that I pushed him and I didn't see that there was a cliff behind him. Did you tell anyone that it was an accident? Alex asked. I was planning to, Gretel said, but then I realized the cell allowed me to be something the rest of the world didn't. Just Gretel. So I pleaded guilty and I've been here ever since. And so, today, when the soldiers asked me if I wanted to join their army or stay in the cell, I didn't even have to think twice. Gretel sighed at the thought of all her peace the cell had brought her. Connor looked at Alex and circled his temple with his fingers. She's nuts, he mouthed. But Gretel wasn't finished with her story. The worst thing one person can do to another, besides eat them, of course, is to reduce their identity to being only half of something. When someone is treated as half of or less than half of their identity, they're not even being treated like a human at all. Everyone should have the right to individuality. Connor stood up slowly and walked away from the cell. Well, thank you, Lady Gretel, he said. We should get going now. We need to figure out where this army went. Wait, Gretel said. I can tell you. The army and the soldiers went back to their camp, but the general and his men were headed somewhere else. Where? Alex asked. I don't know, just somewhere else, Gretel said. The prisoner across from me, they call him the masked man because of the sack he wears over his head. He was talking to the general before they let him out. He convinced the general that they needed a dragon to get rid of the fairies and take over the world. He said it was the only way the general would win. Alex and Connor exchanged the same confused look. A dragon? Alex asked. But they've been extinct for hundreds of years. Our grandmother and her friends were the only ones who fought them off during the Dragon Age. Yeah, apparently the masked man knows where to find one, Gretel said, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did. He's a very unusual man. Yeah, I get that, Shelley. He's been in that cell for almost a decade now, and he likes to talk to himself at night. Sometimes I swear I heard someone else in there with him, but that would be impossible. Connor walked to the cell of the masked man and peeked inside. Hey, Alex, this guy's got a lot of stuff in here. Alex joined him at the cell. The door was still open and they had just walked inside together. Just being in it gave them the creeps. The walls were covered in bizarrely carved illustrations of winged creatures, pirate ships, and animals with big ears and feet. There was a pile of coal, and he had carved the pieces into the shapes of hooks, hearts, and swords. An oval mirror in a silver frame hung on the wall. What does a masked man need with a mirror? Connor asked. I have no idea, Alex said. But we should get out of here. We need to fly by their camp and see what the army's up to. They left the cell and went back to the hatch in the ceiling. Alex pointed her wand at the floor, and the stones rose to form a small staircase to rise them back up through the hatch. Goodbye, Gretel called out. I hope you can stop them. Yeah, us too, Connor said before climbing onto the roof. Goodbye, just Gretel, Alex said. Thanks for your help. By the time the twins climbed to the roof, Lester had eaten the long blades of grass. They hopped aboard the giant goose and took off into the sky. The general told half of his men to set up camp somewhere in the southeast where the portal had spit us out, Connor told his sister. I bet they've regrouped by now. Alex took Lester's reins and steered him high into the sky. Above the south of the Eastern Kingdom, Alex and Connor searched the ground as they passed over it, not sure what they were looking for. However, as soon as the camp came into view, they knew exactly what it was. Hundreds of trees had been cut down to make way for the expansive camp the soldiers had built. There were dozens and dozens of large beige tents being set up by the timbered trees that had been used to build a wall around the camp. There were thousands of soldiers setting up and marching around the camp, and the soldiers weren't alone. 1,000 or so recruits from Pinocchio prison were scattered around the camp as well. Giant ogres did the heavy lifting as the soldiers built the camp. Witches wove broomsticks out of tree branches, and soldiers trained goblins how to fire cannons, and trolls how to shoot rifles. To Alex and Connor's horror, their target practice was a line of wooden fairy dummies. Mother Goose was right, Connor said. They're preparing for war. Dun, dun, dun. All right, we definitely did get through the second chapter. That's pretty cool. Making waffles. All right, it's 7:47, so I don't have time to get through another one because they're coming over at 8. But crazy times. All right. I love this book. I love this series. So good. All right, go get ready for the day. Oh, I'm ready. I'm dressed. I'm ready to go. I'm just waiting for them to come over. Oh my gosh, we won't get to talk to you for a week, Shelley. Is that real? You're going to be out of pocket for a week? Whoa. I will, Shira. I will. Well, not on live. True. That's fair. All right, have fun. We can't wait to see pictures. I will see you all later for Wine and Slime. Wine and Slime is tonight at 5 p.m. Pacific time. See you guys later.